And now it's my pleasure to introduce Larry Hemley. He's the president of S.J. Hemley Marketing. You're beating me to it with the slideshow. He's the founder. He's a dedicated staffing marketing firm. He has over 20 years getting marketing for technology, healthcare, scientific, clinical, and engineering professional staffing firms. So he has quite a wide breadth of industry experience. And after working with some of the nation's leading staffing firms and driving ROI marketing efforts, he set a path for working with small to medium firms to assist in their driving their goals. And I'll hand it over to Larry now. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate it. Well, first of all, I don't like spending much time on giving the promos for ourselves, but I just have to give the small plug. S.J. Hemley was founded with the idea of working with small and mid-size staffing firms across a wide array of different genres, from technology to healthcare to you name it, legal, accounting, so on. So with that said, we would love to work with you and give you any chance to help your organization. But what we want to talk to you about today is around pillar content. And I hope that for those of you that join just from seeing that title, I'm excited to talk to you because of the fact that I hope that you realize what I'm about to show next, which is really, why is today's conversation valuable? And the fact is that as we talk about the various types of marketing that you can do, there's so many different types that actually help each other. And so pillar content is the idea of bringing a large amount of content into a single page. Okay, these used to be called super pages and so on. But the reason that you care is because of leads, and leads. The fact is that when you think about why people turn to the different firms that they do, it's mostly because of the fact, if I were to ask each of you what differentiates you to your client base, I am pretty sure that you're going to tell me it's something about how you collaborate with them, or how you provide a greater customer service to them, or a better value with your recruiters. And those are all true. The reality is how in which we partner with people tends to be very transparent on the back end. If you are working with a client that you've had for 5 years, I am sure they can tell people how you partner with them. But when you try and tell someone you've never met before how you partner with them, it does sound like a lot of words. Well, here's the thing. What we try and tell people is there's a lot of ways to look at the market. Do you need to be everything to everyone, or are you trying to be a specialty shop? And I wanted to list these examples today up here is because of the fact that when I came up in the industry, one of the things that we quickly learned was the difference between Home Depot and local hardware versus the general practitioner doctor and the oncologist. Don't like talking about cancer so much, but what I will tell you is that many people will say Home Depot won the war on local hardware. It's pretty clear. The market chose that if you gave me everything in one place, that I would go there. But then what they didn't take into account is that's a product-oriented marketing effort and a product-oriented business strategy. In services, is it better to be the general practitioner, or is it better to be either the dermatologist or the oncologist, et cetera, in the sense that when people need an expert, that's where they're going to turn. Both arguments are valid, but what we want to do is be able to convey that to clients in order to get those leads. How many marketing efforts have you done over the years that it felt like they should work, but they didn't? The reality is that a lot of that is tied to what did people see when they came to look at you? What did they see when they saw your brand? So what a pillar content page does is brings all the content onto a single page. And so on the right-hand side here, you can see whether you're talking about webinars or whether you're talking about an infographic or ebook, the podcasts that are possible, different blogs you might have done, we're all building these content items. Okay, so if you think about those for a moment as just an asset, each one of those is a single asset. Now you build one page where you put all of the assets on the page on a general topic. The reason you're doing this is because if you think about that leads, let's work backwards for a minute. Okay. When we work backwards, we see, well, what was the prospect originally looking for? They went and wanted to find some information on either hiring practices or salaries, etc. Okay. So they went and did a search. Well, SEO rewarded you for building that content in the form of an ebook. It's on your site. It comes up when the person searches. It may not be in the best position possible because there's competition there. That competition is exactly what you want to fight for, because many people in the staffing world have undergone SEO, but it's not a large percentage. When you look at this, maybe 10% of the staffing world is invested in marketing efforts like these that can drive their results. So you're fighting with a smaller audience, okay, on the web. Secondly, is the fact that you know your clients, you know what information they want and need. It's a matter of what you can provide and build. Bringing that all together, now when you bring that pillar page together, the reason all this is important to think about your competition is because if you've been ranking on page 2 or a little bit at the bottom of page 1, maybe page 3 or 4, you've been closing in on getting results. But the fact is that you can't seem to pull it over that edge. Pillar pages pull it over that edge. And such a small percentage of people are using this. HubSpot brought these back, I would say, probably in the neighborhood of 3 years ago. And when they brought it back, it was under the guise of pillar content. We all knew them as super pages before, and it was, it carried a different reasoning. But very simply is the pillar content allows you to load a page with multiple assets. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So let's get into the details. What is a pillar page? So the Content Marketing Institute defines a pillar page as, by the way, also known as a content or power page, a web page that covers the overall topic in depth and links to the clusters of the related topic. So I want you to pay attention to that. It's the topic and the clusters, okay? When we think about this, and by the way, one thing I'm going to do today, over the years, people throw out words and nobody knows how to put those in perspective. So when you look at this topic cluster, it's very easy. If you go read the definitions, it's very easy to get confused about what it is. If you think about the fact as your topic is IT hiring or travel nurse hiring, that's your topic. So then what are the clusters that go around that? Okay. So what are the things that show or talk about hiring in those respects? So a salary guide would be an example. Okay. Or an interview checklist or questions, or going through the idea of different media, like a webinar that you hosted, and bringing all these together. Those clusters now form a true topic cluster and build you that pillar page to where you can have the ability to get much better SEO results from what you're doing. It's very unusual for me to do things around content marketing that is more on the SEO side. Most of our content marketing, we're talking about SEO as a side effect more than we're talking about it as the primary thing. But in this case, it's just so powerful. It was something that we wanted to share and we wanted to take advantage of getting to everyone. So when we talk about what's that benefit that you get from this, well, it presents you as a thought leader more so than anything else, because remember, it's the quantity of the content that you've created that now casts light into the fact that you're an expert. If you've got a video, a white paper, a case study, a blog article, you name it. If you've got all these on one page and someone comes to that, they're like, wow, okay, everything I needed in one place. It gives you that Home Depot feel, but it is acting like the oncologist because it is specific to the topic cluster. I hope everybody understands that, and I look forward to, if there's any questions, I have a feeling that'll be the area. So feel free to shoot those over. As we were talking earlier with Christina mentioned, feel free to send questions. So please do, because we'd love to get to that. But so when you're looking at your pillar page and you're creating your topic clusters, what you're doing is creating the ability for greater SEO on the page. More times that you say certain words that are being caught for SEO results. the more times that you're also putting up assets that are different than one another, something else that they look for. But the other part is that the information is being kept up to date, which is another value for SEO. When you take into account all these different things and what all the different values on your website can bring to you, this immediately starts driving results and driving the fact that you want to be found when that one hiring manager types in, I want to know more about IT hiring trends, or I want to know more about travel nurse hiring trends. And I'm just using hiring trends as the example, as you'll understand in a moment. But very simply is that the concept of be where your clients need you before you need them, before they need you. So in those topic clusters, you've got the pillar, you've got the cluster content, and now we also want to think about how we're going to interlink all these things. So these topic clusters and pillar pages work together, improving your SEO, but they also need to interlink with one another. You want someone to be able to bounce from one area to the next very easily, so that way these pages become their own little website area, if you will, like a microsite. And the idea is that they start feeding off each other, and then immediately those links start getting greater value because they're more relevant to people. The reality is more relevant and convenient kind of mean the same thing at times. So you always want to take into account making it super easy to jump from one place to the next and so on. The result is this interconnected content. Okay. So now each one of those pages is feeding one another. So what's so important about them? As we were talking about, Google recognizes pillar pages. They understand what it is, and they're looking at it, and 64% of the searches are 4 words or more. So what I want you to realize is that there's so many different things that people are putting into their searches now. We're starting to write full-on question searches now. And as a result, the system is getting smarter, and the SEO is getting more relevant. The growing number of these is allowing search engines to provide exactly what you want. Okay. And pillar pages are obviously the ability to, first of all, collect and be very helpful to the user, not to you, but to the user, about a varying topic level. Okay. That means that Google thinks that, okay, well, this is very relevant to our users and readers. Subsequently, they're looking at it. When you go to that pillar page, it's looking at how you organize the content. You know, are you reducing redundant content? Okay, because very simply is redundant content will get you in trouble in SEO. Okay. Are you trying to show that you're a one-stop shop for the audience? Are you providing value? What about keyword ranking? Okay, so when we look at that keyword ranking, you are able to do what's called keyword loading on the page. Okay, these different things are providing a value to you that you just don't understand how much value, because when you look at how SEO is working, there's a number of pieces that go into the equation. One of those is links out and one is links in, otherwise known as backlinks. So when we look at those backlinks that we want drawing, you've now created this content ring. You're trying to get out and drive it back in. So when we talk about this, it gets better results on the keywords, but it's also looking at how can I draw in other content that I've used. We're going to talk about using past blog articles in a moment, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. We're also going to talk about how to specifically use this for lead generation. So when we get to the end, I think you'll be very happy to know that this wasn't an exercise in just getting information. Let's talk about the types of content pages for a second. So what we're talking about is there's pages that are referred as the 10x pages, 10 times, or the resource pages or the product service pages. It's pretty clear that what I've been describing to you is a little bit more on the 10x. So on the 10x, there's one key is that all of that material needs to reside within your site. The idea behind it is it's not the outgoing, it's more of the incoming. Whereas the resource page is a bit more of a page where you find there might be a section to get to links on hiring trends and salary guides. So if you can think of that in the examples that I've been giving, the resource page is really truly mostly content that's been borrowed from other places being used to drive back to that content. So what it's doing is making you a part of their loop. This is commonly done when you don't have all the assets that you really need in order to build a 10x page. So that's kind of a step down from it. It has very similar effects. It is very useful, but it fits certain equations better than others. It's not for every situation. But as you go through it, it's very similar in the approach of gathering the information. Okay, so then there's also the product to service. And this is more of what we've all come to know as like the typical e-commerce page, where you're seeing that there's descriptions about different things, a place to buy, related articles, the step-by-step approaches and things of that nature. So all of these are allowing you to put all that information on so that it drives better SEO. So now for the fun part. And I'm hoping we won't have any technology problems. Fortunately, I've got a backup plan. So, but the fact is we built a pillar page for one of our clients, and we were going through, and as you can see, it's on the project manager hiring guide. I'm going to try and reload this and see if we get lucky this time. And if not, I'm going to switch to the web browser. But the idea behind this is that you've got a page that has an extreme amount of content. And as you're going through, you're taking that content, instead of making it PDF, you're doing both PDF and general content. I am a person that grew up in lead generation. And from that perspective, it was very hard for me to think about, hold on one moment, I'm going to switch this right now. So it was very hard for me. Can everyone, let's see, make sure, see this? Yes. So it was very hard for me as a lead generator to give away my content without asking for a form. It was one of the things that really stood out to me as a problem with using your content as both a lead generator and as an SEO driver. However, the people that created these pillar pages thought that through. You have to think about it from the standpoint of how many times in your life have you ever copied content out of a website and pasted it into a Word document just to save yourself the trouble of downloading a PDF? And the answer is, if you have, congratulations to you, because you just proved me wrong. But I don't think there's very many people that want to go to that level of effort for a small piece of content when all they have to do is download it. So you kick off with having a call to action that immediately, in this case, I'm just going to hit this for you, takes you over to a download button for you to be able to download, and you come over and give your information, et cetera, et cetera. So when we look at this, though, this is taking all the content from the hiring guide and bringing it onto this page. We're making it socially shareable. But in addition to that, we're putting various calls to action to get people to go back and try and download it. We're using this inner navigation of jump links and anchor links to make this to where we can easily jump to different places in the article. And we place this in several strategic locations in order to make it easy for everyone to navigate. We can jump right down to interview questions, etc. Go through the job ad and interview recruitment checklist. We also want to jump through and now immediately try and push them back to going to the call to action. I want to show up here for a moment that in addition, we went down the road of looking at the full stack developer hiring guide. So this one draws you over to a different piece. As you can see, please look at the content. There is a great deal of content that's been created, all of it working SEO in your favor. As you're going through this, we want to put in the related hiring articles that we've done in our blog. So as you can see, there's articles that are rotating through and bringing us the different perspectives that we've been writing about and continue to write about, which also refreshes the page's content and keeps you getting rankings on your SEO. As you're going through, we also wanted to put in, well, what other things would people care about in hiring? Well, they might care about a work from home study, or in our case, or the return to the office, the tri-state candidate perspective, or the trouble facing CIOs, the salary guide. You have to realize there are so many different opportunities for different content to be created. And as you're going through it, it becomes these enormous pillar pages. These pillar pages, if you just look at the sheer content and the quality of the content that's being provided, what you see is that many people will find this in their search results, and as a result, come looking where they might not have been before. I want to back up for just a moment to say that when we talk about SEO and staffing, one of the things that we hear most commonly is the fact that yeah, SEO matters, but what client is going out and searching staffing firms I want to work with in my area? And we agree with that. We agree there are not many companies out there going, no staffing firm has ever called me. I need to go to the internet and find things. Okay. That's not what we're suggesting. What we're suggesting to you is that there is content that people want. These hiring managers that we just discussed as that wouldn't look for another staffing firm are looking for things that help them in their job, how to manage their days, how to manage the workforce, how to manage the hiring process. There are so many topics that we are uniquely qualified to answer as staffing professionals that allow us to come in and make sure that the client, when they search, they find our tools. They come to our tools and they find us to be valuable because we're doing something that other staffing firms aren't. It is very simple that you begin to show the differentiation that you really intend right off of the bat. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that as we look at the various content around pillar content, we're not doing it to be altruistic. We're doing this to drive leads. I want to point out to you, if we look at this, we have one call to action right here. We have social sharing for the people that might actually post this out, which there are a large people that will. We've got the inner navigation to make this going back and forth. And we've broken all the copy to where there is absolute transparency. But when we look at this, all of this content is SEO searchable. And we're now beginning the interconnectedness that we talked about with that wheel. We begin talking about that here with the different full stack developer guides. As, by the way, if you think about this, where this could go is every position could have its own hiring guide. Right there, you've got a huge topic cluster. But as we go through, you can see that there's recommendation of what they should do, what they should be looking for, etc. And the key is that I think we've all worked with hiring managers that seem to be following a process of their own. You can't quite figure out what they're doing. They are having phone screens that you're talking and you don't understand why they're going down the roads they are. They have a technical interview and they don't tend to go down the right road. They bring too many people into the interview process. They take too long. Documents like this, tools like this are a tool to help those managers be better managers, and that makes them better clients for you. So there is a selfishness to doing this for your own good, because looking at these different approaches, what you find is that most of the managers that we're talking about need help. They need our help in staffing to be able to just simply have a life, because one thing that I've always pointed out is that no one ever gets hired with how much time they're going to spend in the hiring process. We all get these 40-hour jobs looking at our job description, and nowhere in the job description does it say that we need to build a new staff, train a new staff, hire more people, etc. So all of those hours are anticipated as going on top of the 40 hours. We've done a fair, I'm bringing that one up as a kind of a little special treat, only because honestly, when we talk to hiring managers and bring that up, it is amazing how many of them latch onto the fact that, yeah, nobody told me it was going to be a full-time job to hire people. So if you can get them talking in those roads. But I challenge each of you to come up with ideas of where you can go with your topics and clusters and really be able to bring to the market what would answer their questions in advance. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Q&A, and I really appreciate your time and look forward to answering any additional questions.